Good afternoon, everyone. My report for today is Lesson 5, Engine System Problems. Letter A, Air Induction and Exhaust System. So, number 1. The intake and exhaust systems are critical parts of the internal combustion engine. So, ang ating intake at exhaust systems ay ito ang pinaka-critical parts dito sa ating sasakyan. Tapos, the intake system ensures the clean, dry is supplied to the engine. Ang may sagot sa malinis na hangin na pumapasok sa ating engine is the intake system. Next, clean, dry air is essential for proper combustion and long-lasting engine. Pag maganda o malinis ang hangin na naipasok ni intake, maganda ang dating nito sa ating combustion pati na sa engine. Pwede na to, pang matagalan na. Next it takes only tablespoon of dirt entering the engine through intake system through na engine. Pag masisira ang engine dahil sa dumi, katumbas lang ng isang tablespoon ng dumi yung nandun sa papasok sa ating makina. The intake system must provide a sealed passageway to the combustion chamber to ensure that no contaminants leak into the system and that no air is allowed to bypass in the airflow sensor. Kailangan sealed ang ating mga tubo para papunta sa combustion chamber para walang leak o contamination na magaganap doon para hindi mahirapan ng ating combustion engine. And the intake system also controls the amount of air entering the engine by use of throttle plate, which is how engine RPM and power are controlled. So dito si intake, meron siyang throttle plate kung saan makocompute niya yung amount ng pumapasok na hangin, tapos kung ang RPM natin. Si intake manifold ang bahala doon. The exhaust system provides a method reducing the noise from the power poles to include components that help reduce the harmful emissions the exhaust stream. Sa exhaust naman, siya ang bahala sa pagbabawas ng ingay ng nilalabas na ito sa tambucho. Siya yung may bahala doon. Tapos, reduce ng harmful emission in the exhaust stream. Next to that, if exhaust gases cannot leave the engine easily, the air will not be able to enter the engine easily. So dito may hirapan ang gas umalis dun sa mahirapan yung gas umalis dun sa natin combustion engine. Next, that an efficient free-flowing exhaust system will assist the engine in creating maximum power of minimal and emission. Next, inspecting the throttle body in the induction system. Meron ditong the throttle body in the induction system ensure that the engine gets airflow into the cylinder. Next, that the throttle body allows control ng engine RPM. So, yung throttle body, siya yung nagko-control kung gaano kabilis ang ating makina. Tapos, induction system gasket leak. Next, engine performance problem will result. Dito. Next ay unang that. Some vehicles use a MAF sensor to send airflow information to the PCM. Next that. The PCM uses this sensor information to accurately deliver fuel. Next is if air leaks are present in the induction system downstream of MAF sensor, the sensor will not be able to measure the air coming into the engine. That PCM use of the sensor info. Additional air is sometimes referred to as false air. Next, PCM will not deliver enough fuel based on the MAF signal and the engine will tend to run lean. Ito naman, next that is ways to test for air leaks para malaman natin kung may butas ang ating mga tubo. Using a substitute fuel such as acetylene, propane, or carburetor cleaner. Itututok lang siya doon para malaman kung nasaan yung butas, may kita agad. Tapos using smoke machine to fill intake system and show external leaks. Using an electronic stethoscope or piece of heater or hose to listen for a point to the leak. Next, if an intake gasket is leaking, use vacuum will pull the gas into the intake manifold. Engine RPM will increase. Bababa yung bilis or medyo papangit yung pagkaka-smooth ng sasakyan pag meron tayong leaking sa intake gasket. Next, if the engine has an idle control system, the RPM may not change much except slightly when leak is uncovered and fuel is pulled away. Next is while the acetylene and propane must still find the leak, a smoke machine is invaluable. A smoke machine pushes smoke at low pressure atmospheres into the intake manifold. It can be used to fill enter intake system with smoke. Ito, using smoke machine naman, in any leaks, smoke will leak from inside system to outside. Makikita mo yung pag meron tayong leak, makikita kasi merong usok sa loob at labas ng ating makina. Next, checking the idle control operation. So dito sa checking idle control operation, idle speed of engine is controlled by the PCM through an idle air control motor or valve or by electronically controlled throttle. So yung kung yung bilis ng takbo ng ating sasakyan, PCM yung nagko-control nun para alam niyo kung gaano tayo kabilis. Siya yung nagko-control kaya ng idle ng control motor or valve or by the electronically controlled throttle. Next that, the PCM is programmed to control idle speed based on the different operating conditions sensed by the input sensors. Yun nga, PCM yung nakaprogram na siya para control yung idle speed base dun sa tinatakbo ng ating sasakyan. Nase-sense na rin yung ng ating mga sensor. Next that, input include RPM, the engine coolant temperature, the power steering pressure switch, and the air condition switch. Input ng dun sa naka-input sa ating RPM, kasama na dun ng engine coolant temperature, power steering pressure switch, tas yung air conditioning switch. Next that, engine speed can surge if an engine sensor inputs are out of range or if a vacuum leak is present. Next that, the scan tool indicates what is happening with the idle control. So dito yung scan tool natin ang ang naka-indicate para sa mga nangyayari dito sa ating idle control. Tapos next that, ang sinasabi dito, pag naka-close, fully close ang ating idle, ito ay 0. Pero pag fully open naman ang ating idle, ito ay 140. Starting the engine on a vehicle without a vacuum leak will result in the idle count showing around 20. Pag walang leak ang ating vacuum, nag-i-start ito sa 20. Pero if a leak is present, the idle count will be lower, and if the leak is bad enough, it can be read 0. So yun, pag walang leak, 20 ang ating countings. Pag walang leak, 20 ang countings. Pag meron, 0 ang ating countings. Yun, vehicle will typically display at desired idle speed and the actual idle speed on the scan tool data. Doon sa scan tool data natin, doon natin makikita, doon naka-display ang ating idle speed at actual idle speed. Next, exhaust inspection, yun. Tapos dito na tayo sa smoke test for leak. Smoke test for leaks. Remember that smoke will fill the cylinder of the engine on the cylinder that has an exhaust valve open. So doon, pag napuno na yung cylinder ng usok, at doon na yung pupunta sa ating cylinder, tapos lalabas na sa ating exhaust. If both intake and exhaust valves are open due to overlap, you may see smoke coming from the air cleaner assembly. Next, this is considered normal and should be confused with a leak from the exhaust. Tapos, next, that good way to test integrity of the pipe is to use large pair or adjustable pliers to squeeze the pipe. If springly crush pipes need to be replaced. So, yun, pag yung pipes niyo daw is mabilis parang malambot, sobrang lambot na tapos madali lang masira. Ayun, kailangan na talagang palitan yun. Tapos, dito tayo sa inspecting the exhaust system for leaks. So, yung dito, yung sa first step, place the vehicle on the lift and secure it in a place. Use a drop light to inspect for leaks or crash holes in the exhaust system. Check the exhaust manifolds for evidence of the exhaust leak. Dito sa step 1, kailangan mong tutukan ng ilaw yung ating exhaust para makita mo kung nasaan yung sira dyan. Tapos dito sa step 2, kailangan mo ng helper para mag-hold ng basahan. Tatakpan yung sa ating exhaust. Tapos ipapahayaan natin siya i-start natin, hayaan natin mag-idling para tumaas yung pressure dun sa ating system. Tapos papakinggan mo na lang kung merong leaks. Tapos sa step 3, pwede tayong gumamit ng mga adjustable pliers para mahawakan ng maayos o ma-squeeze ng maayos yung ating mga pipes. Tapos pwede pa natin maayos para mas maganda na yung tunog niya. Dito naman tayo, performing an exhaust back pressure test. Dito, kailangan nating i-remove ang ating oxygen sensor. Tapos i-install natin ang ating adapter to the to the oxygen sensor hole and connect a low pressure gauge. Yun. Sa test 2 naman, start an engine and observe any exhaust back pressure should be more than, kailangan hindi tataas ng 1.5 psi at hindi bababa ng 1.5 psi at hindi tataas ng yung ating idle ng 3 psi o 20.7 kPa. Tapos ang ating RPM is 2,000 RPM lang. Increase in the engine RPM. Next is fuel system. If you've been experiencing problem related to your car's fuel system, we can help you diagnose the problem and get it. So, ang ating fuel system, pag na experience nung may masira ng mga yung sasakyan, pwede kayong matulungan ng fuel system o ma-diagnose kung anong problema nito. Tapos, number 1 is neglected fuel filter. Tapos, as with all things involving car maintenance, replacing wear items before you go back to the initial to the overall health of your car. Letting the fuel filter go too long in your car can lead to many of the problems we already described right above. Neglected fuel filter, ito yung parang hindi na fuel pumapasok na maayos dun. Tapos, pwedeng masira yung ating fuel filter. Tapos kasi yung itong fuel filter ang ating nagsasala ng mga doon, dumi. Next is bad fuel sending unit. Dito naman sa ating bad fuel sending unit, ito yung hindi sakto o hindi tama yung nagamit na fuel. Tapos dito, ang misnomer ang nagsisend ng fuel sa ating mga unit. Sinesend nito yung mga amount ng fuel remaining in the gas to the instrumental cluster. Yun. Tapos, if you ever drive in a car with a gas gauge with the network, in a likelihood the fuel sending unit was stuck or not working. Next is number 3, leaking fuel inject. So dito naman sa clogged fuel sa leaking fuel injectors, yun, malalaman mo lang dito kung may leaking ang ating fuel injector. Next is clogged fuel Next is dito naman sa clogged fuel injectors, If the pump is working correctly, it will send fuel through the fuel lines and the injectors. Yun, pag maayos yung yung pag maayos yung pag-pump, tapos tamang-tama yung working nung ating makina, magsisend sila ng fuel sa mga linya na papunta sa ating injectors. Tapos dito naman, number 5, a bad fuel pump. Dito sa bad fuel pump, pag hindi maayos pag may sira o di maayos ang ating fuel pump, hindi siya gaano makakapag-send ng fuel sa ating mga engine. In a modern car, the engine fuel injected and the fuel injectors need a constant and steady stream of pressurized fuel so they cannot do their job correctly. Pag hindi maayos, hindi nila matatrabaho ng maayos yung kanilang pagsesend ng fuel. Cooling system naman natin, letter B is ang pinaka-common failure ng ating cooling system is dito lang sa simple repair. Ang ating radiator hose clamp does not have been installed properly. Hindi lang maayos yung pagkakalagay ng ating radiator hose clamp. Para naman sa complex repair, vehicle needs a new head and block because a served pH imbalance in the cooling system has a recorder in the internal metal. Kailangan lang nito ng panibagong head o yung pangharang niya doon. Para naman, the next is overheating has several causes. Dahil di maayos ang ating cooling system, madalas nag-overheat ang ating sasakyan. Diyan, low coolant level due to a leak. Low coolant dahil dun sa ating leak. Tapos, stuck yung ating thermostat, pati ang radiator cap. Tapos, barado o hindi gumagana barado ang ating tubes or fins. Hindi gumagana ng maayos ang ating cooling fan, water pump impeller and slipping or shaft. Tapos hindi rin gumagana ang ating head gasket. So, yun yung mga possible ng ating mga overheating. Ayan, next natin is lubrication system. Dito sa lubrication system, to troubleshoot ang engine lubricating system, begin by gathering information on the problem. As the operator questions, analyze the symptoms using understanding of the system operation. You should arrive at the logical deduction about the cause of the system problem. Ito yung ating the 4 problems most often occur in the lubricating system of our system are as follows. Ito yung 4 na problema lagi sa ating lubrication system. Una, high oil consumption o yung malakas na paggamit ng oil. Nakakasama yun sa ating lubrication system. Pangalawa is low oil pressure. Mahina naman siyang gumamit ng oil. Next is high oil pressure. So, high oil pressure gauge reads high oil filter swell. Malakas yung pressure dun sa ating makina. Tapos, ang pang-apat naman, defective indicator or gauge. Sira ang ating indicator gauge o may defective, hindi maayos yung pagtakbo ng ating indicator. So, yun lamang po. Thank you po.